Ari Padarath and Ms. Shavana Sam. Member Padarath and Ms. Shavana Sam's portfolios within the Ministry of Public Utilities, and as such, in keeping with established parliamentary practice, both of them have opted to recuse themselves from today's proceedings. The National Maintenance Training and Security Company is a wholly owned state enterprise incorporated on the 27th of November 1979 to provide security and maintenance services to schools and learning institutions in Trinidad and Tobago. According to the State Enterprises Investment Program 2026, the company has 6,469 employees and services over 900 facilities. MTS last appeared before this committee on the 31st of January 2022 in the second session of the 12th Parliament. At that time, the previous committee was advised that the company was generally considered self-sufficient, but had recently faced a number of challenges, chief among them the significant unpaid amounts owed to the company by other state agencies. As such, this committee found it prudent and timely to undertake an examination into the operations of the MTS with a specific focus on the maintenance of schools by MTS, the strategic and financial direction of MTS, and the challenges and opportunities that are associated with the expansion of its mandate. I will now ask committee members to kindly introduce yourselves, starting with the Honorable Attorney General.
Your stay here will be pleasant as it can be.
Good morning, Anil Roberts, member.
Good morning, Philip Watts, Vice Chair of the Committee and Minister of Sport and Youth Affairs.
Good morning, member Marvin Gonzalez.
Good morning all, Foster Cummings, member.
Thank you all. Now, may I ask those who will be giving evidence today to please introduce yourselves? Starting with the chairman.
Good morning, Adrian Barron, Chairman, MTS.
Good morning, Brian Bacon, Interim CEO.
Good morning, Lana Lakan, Corporate Secretary, Acting.
Good morning, Neela Ram-Atwaroo, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good morning, Claudel McKellar, Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education.
Good morning, Ayana Clark, Deputy Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education.
Good morning, Alana Hussein, Divisional Manager, Human Resources at MTS.
Good morning, Daniel Nanku, Director, MTS.
Good morning, Sherwin Gosain, Divisional Manager, Marketing, MTS.
Good morning, Aretha Ram, Acting Chief Financial Officer, MTS, as of Friday.
Good morning, Cheryl Ann Solomon, Acting Deputy Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Public Utilities.
Good morning, Ronald McLeod, Quantity Surveyor Assistant, Trim, Ministry of Education.
Good morning, Azania Joseph, Education Research Officer 2, Acting at the Ministry of Education.
Good morning, Ryan Maharaj, Director, Agro-Based Manufacturing and Services Sector, Ministry of Finance.
Good morning, Sebastian Tardy, Associate Professional at the Ministry of Finance.
Thank you all. Now, before going further, just a couple housekeeping matters. Please remember that we are participating in a public hearing, which involves a video link. So hearing by electronic means are also conducted as though you're present. So when you speak, please speak clearly and directly, not too quickly in the event that there's a time lag. You should look directly into the camera. Time is limited, and I will try to keep us on time as there's a lot to cover. I would like to remind participants that we proceed by question and answer. We want to find out information and views from the witnesses, not to take up time telling our own views. I encourage everyone to keep questions and answers brief and as focused as possible so that we can maximize the number of persons who have a chance to contribute. Let's talk one at a time, stay on point, try not to interrupt when someone is speaking. Raise your hand if you want to speak. You can also move the discussion forward by emailing questions and comments. This session offers a forum for you to share your challenges, disappointments, and achievements, to voice concerns, and to make recommendations. They provide a unique opportunity to increase public awareness, understanding, and support in respect of your operations. So, may I, having said that, invite the chairman to say opening remarks.
Mr. Chairman, honorable members of the Joint Select Committee, good morning. I thank the committee for this opportunity to appear before you as the chairman of the board of the National Maintenance, Training, and Security Company Limited. The government of Trinidad and Tobago, under the leadership of the Honorable Prime Minister, has established a clear and necessary direction for state enterprise reform. That direction calls for strengthened governance and institutional accountability, fiscal discipline that demonstrates value for money, reduced reliance on the public purse through commercial viability, and modernization to enhance both productivity and national competitiveness. The board of MTS accepts this direction without reservation. We treat this not as aspiration, but as mandate for execution. The Honorable Minister has been equally clear in his directive to this board. MTS must grow and fulfill its potential as a strategic national asset. Our responsibility is to translate national policy into institutional performance. Policy must manifest in controls, reform must manifest in decisions, expectations must manifest in measurable results. MTS occupies a position of substantial responsibility within the national infrastructure. Thousands of employees maintain schools, secure courts, support government ministries, and respond during national emergencies. When parents bring children to school, they expect that and they trust that those facilities are safe and properly maintained. When courts convene, they depend on secure and functional premises. When ministry face operational challenges, MTS is often called upon to respond. The relevance of this institution is not in question. The standard at which it operates is. The board understands its duty to raise that standard decisively. Honorable members, when the current board assumed office, we encountered an organization under considerable strain and in need of immediate correction. Governance structure and board oversight had weakened substantially. Financial controls lacked consistency and rigor. Reporting to the board did not always provide timely or complete visibility to the company's operations. Decision-making authority had become diffused with unclear lines of accountability. Documentation and documentation control was inadequate. Oversight mechanisms were insufficient. In other words, governance structure and board oversight was severely compromised. Upon closer examination, the board identified specific irregularities that demanded urgent attention. These included advance payments made to contractors in some instances without corresponding completion of contracted work and adequate reporting, as well as the lack of quantity reports. Internal controls across critical functions were either absent or inconsistently applied.
Sorry to interrupt you, Chairman, but you're drilling down into the meat of it.
Okay, sure.
These are really just meant to be brief opening remarks.
Okay.
We'll come back to all the points, I'm sure, that you want to make.
Sure. All right. So I'll just conclude. Yeah? Honorable members, let me be clear about where this board intends to position MTS over the next few years. We are committed to making MTS a financially stable and sustainable enterprise that covers operational costs through competitive price contracts and diverse revenue streams, reducing dependency on state subventions, and demonstrating genuine fiscal responsibility to the taxpayer. We intend for MTS to become a model state enterprise, recognized for governance excellence, transparent reporting, and accountability at every level. It will set the standard the Prime Minister has called for across the public sector. MTS will function as a strategic national asset that can be mobilized rapidly for emergency response, infrastructure projects, and national development priorities, delivering value that extends beyond routine maintenance and security functions. We will make MTS an employer of choice and one that invests in workforce development, offers meaningful career progression, and cultivates pride, professionalism, and productivity among its employees. Honorable members, the board understands the sensitivity surrounding inherited weakness and irregularities. We do not seek to apportion blame for past failures. However, we accept the challenge for correction and for ensuring that such conditions do not recur. Where governance and control gaps were identified, the board has directed independent review and is pursuing corrective action with urgency and transparency. The purpose is institutional repair and protection of public resource. The tone within the organization has shifted. Expectations are clear, oversight are active and rigorous, documentation is required. Deviation from standards are challenged, delays are not accepted, credibility is not claimed. It is earned through conduct and confirmed by results. The board is prepared to be judged on that basis. Mr. Chairman, honorable members, MTS remains a vital national asset. Under the board's stewardship, it will operate with the discipline the Honorable Prime Minister demands, the performance the Honorable Minister expects, and the integrity the people of Trinidad and Tobago deserves. I thank the committee for your attention.
Thank you, Chairman Baran. May I now invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities to share some opening remarks, but again, we want to keep it around 2 minutes. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you, Chair. Honorable members of the Joint Select Committee, I thank you for the opportunity to appear before this distinguished committee today. Chair, the Ministry of Public Utilities recognizes the MTS as a state enterprise with a crucial national mandate to support public sector operations, particularly through the provision of security and janitorial services to essential public infrastructure, including schools and other government facilities. The continuity of these services is vital to the delivery of public services, and therefore, the Ministry understands the importance of ensuring that MTS is adequately supported so its operations are not disrupted. The Ministry acknowledges that MTS is operating in a constrained financial environment while continuing to deliver essential services. In this context, strengthened governance arrangements, together with improved reporting and monitoring mechanisms, are necessary to ensure effective oversight, informed decision-making, and the sustainable operation of MTS. The Ministry is therefore focused on supporting initiatives that enhance operational efficiency and institutional resilience within the company. Chair, I wish at the onset to express appreciation to the Ministry of Finance, the PS, and particularly the Budget Director, the PSs and DPSs at the Ministry of Education, as well as the PSs and other colleagues throughout the ministries who continue to support the Ministry of Public Utilities and by extension the MTS in processing of payments to meet salaries and other payments, while we implement a long-term solution to the ongoing issues. The Ministry welcomes the review by this esteemed committee and views it as an opportunity for constructive engagement, reflection, and continuous improvement. We therefore stand ready to assist the committee fully in the conduct of its inquiry. We are also open to recommendations that may arise from the process as we share the common objectives of ensuring that the National Maintenance Training and Security Company Limited operates effectively, responsibly, and in the best interests of the people of Trinidad and Tobago. In closing, Chair and honorable members, I again thank you for this invitation. We look forward to engaging with the committee and contributing meaningfully to its work. Thank you.
Thank you. May I now invite the Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education to share opening remarks.
Thank you, Chair. Chairman of the Joint Select Committee and members, representatives of the Ministry of Finance, the Ministry of Public Utilities, the National Maintenance Training and Security Company Limited, my colleagues from the Ministry of Education, and the members of the viewing public. Good morning. Thank you, Chair, for the opportunity to appear before you today. The Ministry of Education is committed to providing safe, secure, clean, and comfortable environments for its students, teachers, and staff at all of its schools and offices. In this regard, the Ministry of Education has maintained a long-standing relationship with MTS from the inception of the company in 1979 to present, with gradual and continuing evolution of the services provided by MTS. The Ministry of Education views MTS as a critical contributor to the work of the ministry, enabling us to carry out our core functions while the company facilitates supporting activities that are germane to our day-to-day functioning. MTS currently provides support to the Ministry of Education in 3 key areas: janitorial and maintenance services, security, and project management services with respect to school construction and infrastructural maintenance, as well as procurement activities. With respect to janitorial services, MTS provides services across 105 institutions consisting of 22 primary schools, 80 secondary schools, 3 ECCE schools and district offices, as well as the Ministry of Education's head office. These services ensure our office buildings and schools are clean and sanitary. With respect to security services, MTS also provides security services to 40 early childhood centers, 312 primary and 84 secondary schools, ensuring that these plant and personnel remain secure. With respect to infrastructure services, MTS is the state enterprise responsible for project management activities for works funded under the Infrastructure Development Fund. The Ministry of Education has under its purview approximately 800 locations comprising schools, offices, of which more than 50% constitute an aging plant. This is with respect to the schools. Many in the secondary sector are over 50 years old, and there are some that are over 100 years old in the primary sector. This presents an increased need for MTS's services to facilitate the repairs and maintenance work necessary to keep these facilities safe, comfortable, functional, and conducive to teaching and learning. Chairman, my team and I stand ready to respond to the questions that may be posed by the committee, either during today's sitting or in writing subsequently. We certainly also look forward to any recommendations that the committee may make when it submits its report. I do want to point out that the questions that have been posed to the Ministry of Education have fallen under the rubric of maintenance, and in that regard, we have defined or have treated maintenance as comprising janitorial, ground maintenance, and plant repairs. Chair, we thank you, and we look forward to this morning's sitting.
Thank you all. Thank you, PS. Before I open the floor for questions, just to remind everyone to direct your questions and concerns through the chair. Turn your phones on silent. And remember, you turn on and then when you speak, and then turn off after. Thank you all. The floor is open. Member Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Chair. Welcome, and thank you very much for your public service. I just want to ask a couple of questions, and it could be answered by the Ministry of Education, representatives present, or the chairman of the board of MTS. And the first question is in relation to, from what I would have picked up in the submissions by MTS or the Ministry of Education, which is the issue relating to outstanding payments to contractors. In one of the documents, I've realized that for secondary schools, I have observed an outstanding balance of $39 million, approximately. For primary and ECCE schools, $18 million, and in invoices, submitted invoices, and head office, $675,000. That's the Ministry of Education head office, where MTS may have done some work there, I am assuming. And those would have been for the years 2024, 2023, invoices submitted. The allocations made to the Ministry of Education for this current fiscal year, can you say whether or not the allocations are sufficient to cover those outstanding invoices that have been submitted by the MTS to settle these outstanding payments?
Chair, through you. Thank you, Member, for the question. The liability statement that you referred to goes back to the fiscal 2023-2024,
yeah.
2024-2025.
Yes.
We have been making serious efforts to liquidate the arrears owed to MTS across all of the service areas that it provides. While this year's allocation for janitorial and maintenance services definitely is inadequate for the liquidation of all those arrears, we would certainly, as is the custom, approach the Ministry of Finance, certainly in the midterm, for additional resources where those are required. And there's also the facility to move funds across different votes so that we could expedite payment.
Correct, yeah. Thank you very much for that response. But for 2025 vocation repair program, have you received sufficient funding to meet the financial obligation that would have been incurred as a result of the execution of that program?
Chair, again, through you. We are happy at this time to say that MTS has submitted all of its invoices in respect of the 2025 July-August vacation repair program. The reality is that the vacation program, repair program, took place during the July-August period, with a view to having repair works completed in time for the start of the new school year in September. Invariably, it tends to be a challenge for MTS to be able to project manage and be able to submit the invoices
on a timely basis
prior to the end of the fiscal so that we could pay off. Another reality is that the dollar value of the repair works literally has wiped out our allocation for repair works for fiscal 2025. Because what happened, like I said, we would not have received
No, that's okay. Sorry about that, yeah.
Right. So because, as I said, the works are taking place during the period July-August, and it's difficult or near impossible to receive the invoices before the end of the fiscal, it's always difficult to pay off MTS for the works done in the July-August period before the end of the fiscal. But so it then means that payment for the July-August repair works will have to come from in this case, the 2026 allocation.
I see.
So it's always a kind of catch up.
Catch up.
Yeah. paying for last year with this year's funding.
I understand the constraints. Thank you very much, P.S. P.S., and that question I'm about to ask, it could be answered by yourself or the chairman of MTS or the permanent secretary in the Ministry of Public Utilities. Was there a loan that was raised by central government early this year or last year for MTS to meet its outstanding obligations to contractors? Ministry of Finance? Ministry of Finance is here?
Yes, thank you, member. That loan was raised a couple of years ago to fund projects under the 27 Priority Schools program.
Okay, no, sorry, thank you very much, Ministry of Finance, for that. But I think Ministry of Education, the PS Ministry of Education, or the chairman will be able to answer that question. A loan that was recently raised within the last 12 or 15 months by the government of Trinidad and Tobago, guaranteed by the government of Trinidad and Tobago for MTS to meet outstanding obligations to contractors.
Chair, again, through you, there were in fact 2 loans that were arranged, guaranteed by the state for funding MTS works. One definitely was with Royal Bank.
What's the value of the 2 loans?
Just a minute.
Sure.
The Scotiabank loan was to the order of 174.7 million, while the Royal loan, I believe it was in the order of 250 million.
So the Royal was 250 million?
250 million.
And the Scotia was?
The Scotia was 174.7.
What's the purpose of those 2 loans, PS?
To facilitate repair works at schools.
Repair works to be conducted, or repair works that may have been conducted and outstanding invoices to be settled?
To be conducted. So, for example, there were works being done, repair works being done during the last fiscal that we did draw down from the loan facilities.
Okay. The outstanding invoices for fiscal 2023 and 2024, can you advise whether or not this loan or the 2 loans were utilized to settle outstanding invoices incurred in those 2 fiscal years?
What I would like to clarify, Chair and member, is that works, maintenance works at Ministry of Education facilities, schools in particular, were assigned or paid for either out of the 2 loan facilities or the regular infrastructure development fund. Right? So when we would have assigned contracts, given MTS approval to execute works, we would have indicated which fund, what was the source of funding for the respective items. But please allow me to refer the question to Mr. Ronald McLeod from our Education Facilities Department, who is more intimate with the information.
And just to be clear, I don't want to belabor the point because I have a couple more questions asked and my colleagues as well. I'm just trying to find out, having regard to the submissions made by MTS and the Ministry of Education, where you're seeing huge sums of money outstanding to contractors over 2022, 2023, and 2024, whether or not the loan that was raised, the loans that were raised and guaranteed by the government have been utilized to settle or will be utilized to settle these outstanding invoices. Because it caught my eyes that the loans were raised, the monies were made available to MTS, but yet still you are seeing a large balance of monies owed to contractors over the period that I've just discussed. So whoever is responding, that's where I'm trying to get at,
yes,
in the interest of time.
Mr. McLeod?
Good day, Speaker. Through the Chair, under the RBC loan, we would have expended approximately 114 million, and under the Scotiabank loan, 136 million. We had a balance of roughly 133 million under the RBC loan, which was used to finance the July-August 2025 VRP. And under the Scotiabank loan, the outstanding balance, we still await invoices because works are still going on some of those 27 schools that were identified under the Scotiabank loan. Those were 27 government secondary schools.
Thank you. Member Jeremy, you had a question? Member, you had a follow-up?
Perhaps later on in the proceedings, but in the interest of time and to be fair to my colleagues, I will, maybe on the next rounds.
Could you please tell me, good morning, when were those loans signed or taken out? What was the date of those loans? Both the Scotia and the RBC.
Member, I think those questions fall to the Ministry of Finance, I believe.
Yes, who could answer. Maybe Mr. McLeod could answer.
With respect to the RBC load, that would have been taken out somewhere around March 2025, and with respect to the Scotiabank loan, that would have been somewhere around 2023 or 2022, but can we respond to you in writing to give you the exact dates?
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Just a follow-up, and that is specifically to the Ministry of Finance, or perhaps Ministry of Education, or anyone who might be willing to respond. Was a decision taken by the Cabinet of Trinidad and Tobago for the balance of those loans or monies to be returned to the Ministry of Finance?
Member, thank you for the question. The RBL loan, which was held in escrow, was returned to the central bank under directive from the Ministry of Finance.
And what was the value of that?
It was a $269 million loan.
So the $260 million was returned?
No, that was the face value of the loan. The balance at that time was approximately $147.5 million.
And a decision was taken for that to be returned to the Ministry of Finance?
Yes, in July 2025.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now, I took very careful note of the chairman's remarks about making MTS a sustainable enterprise, self-sustaining, a model state enterprise, a strategic national asset. And then I heard that the Ministry of Public Utilities regards MTS as a crucial national mandate operating in a constrained financial environment. Now, we had submitted some questions, and we got very comprehensive and fulsome written submissions. My focus is on the company's main strategic objectives and priorities arising out of the submissions you provided. So will the new strategic plan be developed internally, or will its development be outsourced to a vendor? This is with respect to your strategic plan.
So the board wishes to note that the present plan has guided operations to date, right? The current board has determined that comprehensive strategic reset is necessary to align with the government's reform priorities and the minister's growth mandate. So that new strategic plan, 26 to 2030, is currently under development and review by the board. We are in the stages of determining whether the board will be doing that internally or if we are outsourcing that.
And in the meantime, from the board's perspective, should any of the strategic objectives outlined in the 2022-2026 strategic plan be retained and carried over into the new plan?
So given the current financial status of the company and lack of the progress over the years, you know, the questions were raised by the board on the strength of the current strategic plan, right? And the former board's ability to execute. So measures are, for this reason, the current board seeks to implement new strategies and a new strategic plan with new ideas, a fresh outlook on how to really revolutionize the MTS as a whole.
All right. I'm confident that you'll be using a very objective approach in assessing the existing plans and developing your new plan before deciding whether to revise or discontinue. Now, your written submissions highlighted quality service and profitability performance targets, setting numerical targets and standards across divisions, and incorporating them into performance management. Can you provide examples of the numerical targets and standards that have been applied across divisions?
Mr. Chairman, good morning. I've been with the company for about 6 to 8 weeks. I think that's a question that our management team can answer. Given that the strategic plan would have spanned from 2022 to 2026, we're supported by Ms. Hussain and Mr. Gosain, and they could give some ideas in terms of what would have been achieved.
Morning again, Chair. Profitability performance targets. It is the intention of MTS to have all its facilities operated in a profitable manner, and we check that on a monthly basis, especially when we provide this information on our monthly reports. Our objective is that all our facilities must be profitable. For example, if we have a job taking place in the Ministry of Finance, North Tower, and there's a janitorial job there, a technical services job there, a security job there, all jobs must be profitable, and we check it. In terms of standards across divisions, for example, in the facilities maintenance division, there are standards. There are cleaning standards, and it is measured in the scope of works. It is measured at the end of the month. For example, in each of our secondary schools that we clean, the principal appraises the performance of the jobs in cleaning. For example, the frequency of sweeping, mopping, grass cutting, and they do a report every month. And this report is signed off by the principal and MTS and submitted to the Ministry of Education in order for MTS to be paid. So there are standards, a lot of areas where we examine and measure and appraise and report on relating to profitability.
Okay, and what occurs if a division does not achieve these targets and standards?
Well, there has to be remedial action. For example, take for example the security division. And when we tend to look at some of the facilities or some of the schools, they may have absenteeism leading to overtime. And in that case, we would look at the underlying factors that causing overtime in this school facility. It may be because of absenteeism. It may be because of seasons, carnival season, Christmas time. So we look at the numbers, we do analysis, and take remedial action.
Thank you. Now, with respect to strategic objective 3, creating a research and development capacity and addressing gaps, particularly in security technology, digitization, new product development. Without going into excessive operational detail, can you broadly describe some of the company's technology gaps?
Well, the company has improved recently in terms of technology. For example, the software applications in the finance and HR division was upgraded. However, in order to engender the growth and development of the company and the way technology moves, there's always room for improvement. For example, a project was recently started to digitize the manual processes in the marketing division. However, there were some logjams along the way, including finance, how to finance the financial applications for it, and the enterprise content management software, for example. So technology, there were some improvements, and there's always room for growth in IT and technology at MTS.
Chairman, I would just like to add what I have experienced or seen is that we have a management team that works within the limitations that they have. So there is the strategic plan, and they've been working towards that, but they're working within the constraints, and a lot of those constraints has been the cash constraint in terms of delivering on the plan.
Right, thanks. I'm wondering, have those technology gaps affected your ability to get clients if their operational needs require specific technological systems and infrastructure?
Maybe Mr. Gosain could elaborate on that.
Chair, there's no yes or no answer to that particular question. However, if you really want to take the company's facilities, improve the facilities management with respect to technology at MTS, you know, the company in the past would have looked at software management for building software management, you know. So there's no yes or no answer to that question. But generally, yes, it has impacted in our development in terms of software to improve building technology.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to come back to some more questions later. Member Roberts has some questions.
Thank you, Chairman. To Mr. Gosain, he said recently. Some people might say we qualified for the World Cup recently, but that didn't happen since November 2005. I ate doubles recently, that is this morning. So what is recently, please?
Well, member, I hope you had the coffee with the doubles. Recently, in terms of the digitization of the marketing division project, research would have started in the year 2021. Decisions would have been made up to 2024, as recent as that.
Thank you. All right, so either the CEO of MTS or the chairman, how much is owed currently? How much is owed to contractors, to suppliers, to goods and service providers, to salaries, to pension? How much is owed?
I can give you a rough estimate. To me, it's close to, it's over $850 million.
No, talk that slow. My ears, slowly. How much?
850 million.
Okay, $850 million. All right. And how far back? What's the longest term creditor you have? How long you're owing people? Who is the longest owed? How far back?
That's a good question. I don't have the answer how
Well,
far
that's
back.
a very important question. Could somebody in the back behind there find out, please, how long and how is it late are we in paying our bills? Very important, especially if we're talking about we're not here to blame, but we need to fix the organization and move forward. You can't know where you're going unless you know where you have been. So y'all find out that for me, please. And what accounted for this $850 million hole?
Well, what I can say accounted for it has been a shortfall in the collections of what we have invoiced.
And this shortfall would be approximately how much annually, so we could extrapolate how long this problem has existed for?
And I would pass it on to the team, but looking at the last JSC hearing, it was around 650, and it's about 850 today. That's 200 million over the last 4 years. But I could pass it on to the team in the back if they have something more than myself.
Anybody in the back?
That information will have to be provided. But I can give an example to your previous question. Take, for example, people who cut grass. We will owe them, we are owing them between 12 and 18 months, just as one example. For example, retirees, we owe them 1 year up to 2 years,
Let's stick to the
for
cutting.
categories.
Let's stick to the cutting grass. It's serendipitous that you went there because you're talking about value for money and so on. Where I am now, we've seen that grass is being cut for $250,000 a month. What is the value? What is the audit? What kind of grass were you all cutting at what sort of cost? Because when they cut my grass at home, 10,000 square foot is about $600 and the turf is uneven. So I cannot fathom $250,000 a month to cut grass in Couva. So what's the procedure at MTS? What's the value for money? How much? How do you work out that? When was the last audit of value for cutting grass done?
Remember, there's a number of questions there, right? So the component for grass cutting and grounds maintenance is largely encompassed in the secondary schools maintenance contract. There are other contracts, right? But I'll stick into the secondary schools maintenance contract. And inside the value of that contract, there's a component and sub-amount for grass cutting at secondary schools. I just isolating the secondary schools maintenance contract. So it is X amount of dollars. And within that X amount of dollars, we have an in-house service where the groundsmen that are assigned at secondary schools, they do cuts. For example, they will cut the verges and the hedges. And we have an external component where subcontractors come in and do play fields, fence line, and spraying. So it is twofold, but all the money that we utilize there comes from the secondary schools maintenance contract, which we bill for on a monthly basis. The cuts are checked on a monthly basis. A school is cut twice in the rainy season and once in the dry season. All right, that is in the contract. There's a scope of works.
Yes.
So we check it on a monthly basis.
Give me more specifics, because you said twofold, but you gave me about 5 things. You said cutting hedge, cutting grass, subcontract, cutting fence line, all kind of different cutting. But one man that's come by me and cut. So please, we're talking value for money. How much under the secondary school contract is it on average to cut grass twice, whether in rainy season or in dry season, to cut grass in a secondary school? What's the cost?
I don't think we work with that specific figure, but that figure for grass cutting can be delineated easily from the secondary school's maintenance contract and submitted to the committee.
All right, but we came here to get information on value for money moving forward. Your chairman spoke about what went wrong and how he's going to fix it going forward. We cannot fix what we do not know. Suppose it don't need fixing, but we need the information. So could you provide that, please? Because I am telling you where I am now. They cannot explain how $250,000 per month to cut grass. So I don't know if you all are at that same level. Who did the contracts for you all as opposed to Ministry of Housing? Who does the value for money? Because we need to go forward. So, Mr. Chairman, based on this information, you said that you want to move forward. How does this $850 million debt, how does this lack of information and value for money affect you and your company going forward?
So we are in the process of recalibrating the priorities, right, to address all the institutional realities encountered upon assumption of office, right? This has been over a number of years. So from a board's perspective, key immediate factors, which are, first of all, restoration of governance control, the financial discipline within the company, institutional integrity, including, and this is an important point, including a completion of a forensic audit and implementation of strengthened approval authorities and financial oversight mechanisms. All right? So this forensic audit is something that is important in order to really mention, member. All right? In my opening statement, I did mention, that the advance payments that were made to contractors, in some instances without corresponding to contracted work, adequate report, as well as lack of quantity reports, right?
So, no, don't rush through that, please. That statement, give me some that's very serious information you're providing there. Please give us and give the population some details of that of which you speak. Advance payments which do not correlate to work, that doesn't sound very good.
Yes, member. So, I am unable to really disclose that information at this time, right? And as the matter will be subject to the forensic audit, right? And that audit will be commencing at the end of January, beginning February. So I really do not want to delve. So the board have seen certain indicators. I do not.
Okay, I won't.
Yeah.
So you are going to do a forensic audit, and it is your belief that there may be criminal prosecution after, and therefore you do not want to prejudice that. So I will accept that at this time and look forward to the forensic audit and it going to the relevant authorities. But as chairman, at what state of anxiety are you now, having seen what you have seen?
Can I say higher than this building?
Well, you see, now you just got the whole population anxious because this is a very critical thing and we are seeing it across the board. Now, going forward, what would you do to ensure that whatever governance structures, financial systems that were left to languish will not continue in that vein moving forward, because the people and the Honorable Prime Minister are calling for value for money, effective work and efficiency.
Yeah, thank you, member. So the board has started with 3 pillars of action. Right, so the board responded with acting firmly with its proper governance role, right? So we set direction, impose standards, and strengthen oversight. Management is responsible for the execution, right? The board is responsible, so I'm getting into it now, the 3 pillars. The board is responsible for ensuring that system functions as intended and that accountability is enforced. So I'm going to outline very briefly 3 areas where the board has taken and will continue to take decisive action and direct alignment with the government reform agenda. So first of all, and I'll get into the financial as well, right? First of all, the governance control and institutional repair. Before progress towards growth is possible, that control must be reestablished and the institutional integrity must be restored, all right? The board has therefore moved decisively to reinforce the foundation of governance and to address the irregularities that we identified. As previously indicated, the board is in the early stages of commissioning that comprehensive independent forensic audit, focusing several areas specifically to and I'll just touch the advance payments to contractors and the completion status of the contracted work. So where public funds were disbursed without commensurate value delivered, the board will pursue appropriate remedies, including contractual enforcement, financial recovery, and where evidence supports it, referral to the relevant legal and investigative authorities. Right? So the findings of this audit will be reported to the appropriate oversight bodies right? With full transparency, member. Board and committee authorities, right? So I'm getting into this first pillar. Board and committee authorities have been clarified and reaffirmed already. Approval limits and delegated powers are being reviewed to prevent undue concentration of decision-making authority in any single individual office, right? Segregation of duties across finance, procurement, and operations are being enforced as a mandatory standard, right? So this is the governance pillar. These actions give practical effect to government's priority, and this touches on the question that they asked, on governance reform and accountability across state enterprises, right? So they are not, so that is why I separated the board and management, right? So these are not administrative exercises. They are the essential safeguards for public resources and public trust, right? The second pillar, quickly, financial stabilization and fiscal discipline, all right? So the board inherited the company facing sustained and serious financial pressure, as we have determined here. Large arrears owed by public sector client service contracts priced at rates no longer reflected economic reality or cost recovery. The wage and statutory obligations managed under persistent strain and, as you mentioned, the emergency borrowing, right, to maintain the operations. So this position as a board was seen as neither sustainable nor fiscally responsible. So the board has therefore directed a firm immediate shift towards that financial discipline and realism. I'm answering your question now as a board. A board-level cash management framework is currently being established with one non-negotiable principle. Payroll and statutory compliance obligations will be met with certainty and on schedule. Our employees depend on this institution for their livelihoods. The state depends on MTS fulfilling its obligations. Neither will be compromised. Cash flow viability and forward projections are now permanent governance requirements. The board receives presently detailed monthly analysis and will maintain continuous oversight of the company's financial position, right? So all major client ministries and agencies will be engaged directly and formally by the board in conjunction with the management to bring existing service contracts under comprehensive review, right? Rates, scopes, and payment terms will be renegotiated respectfully but firmly, right? To really achieve that at minimum cost recovery and where appropriate an operational surplus. Procurement and expenditure decisions now are being governed by value for money principles, right? Aligned with the national fiscal responsibility. Every expenditure will require justification. Competitive process will be mandatory, and again, the transparency will be enforced. So this approach, this is the financial now, directly supports the government commitment to reduce hidden subsidies, eliminate wasteful spending, and restore financial integrity across the state enterprise. That is the second pillar. I have one more pillar, Chairman. Third, the strategic repositioning and growth. Stability and financial discipline are necessary, yes, but they are insufficient. So the minister has charged this board with positioning MTS for growth, modernization, and enhanced service delivery. We have accepted that charge as both a mandate and opportunity. So the board has assumed direct responsibility for leading a comprehensive strategic reset of the organization. That comes to the question you asked before as well. I'll touch a little on, so I'm covering all bases here, what member asked and together with yours. During 2026, this new strategic plan will be developed and approved, aligned explicitly with the national reform priorities and the minister's growth objectives. This will be a working blueprint with defined objectives, measurable targets, and clear accountability. So, not just a document produced for compliance purposes, right? The company's core mandate will be defined with precision. Service boundaries will be clarified. We will identify and develop income-generating service lines in areas where MTS holds demonstrated capability, maintenance, security, training, and project management, right? These services will leverage the existing workforce expertise and national reach of the institution. I'm concluding now. Workforce planning and skills development will be aligned with the future operating model. Our employees are this company's greatest asset. If we invest in their professional development and provide clear career pathways and cultivate a culture of accountability and professionalism, we will get exceptional service to the nation.
Thank you, Chairman.
Just one more paragraph.
That's all right, that's all right. We get it just.
Right.
I have some more things to come just now.
One more
One
paragraph.
quick. All right,
right?
go quick.
Performance and financial accountability will be embedded throughout the organization, and this is important. I needed to touch on performance and financial accountability, right? Executive leadership, and I want to mention this, will operate under measurable targets. Progress will be tracked rigorously. Results will be reported transparency. And the last line, the board and management will be judged on outcomes, not intentions.
Now, Chairman, this meeting recorded on Hansard. So all them nice things you say there, we go check you in a little while, right? So, Chairman?
Sure.
You must have been reading my mind, Member Roberts. Before I pass the baton to Member Gonzalez, I just wanted to piggyback on something that Member Roberts had started. We were talking about the audit. I have two questions. Sure. First, who have you contracted to conduct this audit? And you did say that you were starting the audit at the end of January or thereabouts. So the second question is, what sort of timeline you have for completion of the audit?
All right, so we have looked at several forensic auditors, right? We are in the process of determining the forensic auditor that we are going to use presently. The audit will be 6 to 8 months long. That's in accordance to the scope that we did put forward to them.
The issue with the routine and the forensic audit is one of cost for MTS as well. So that is why we had to engage with a few different auditors in order to ensure that we can pay their fees. We've already supplied substantial information. There have been preliminary requests with respect to the organizational state of MTS. So that information has been submitted. And hopefully we'll be able to finalize the scope of works and they can commence their operations with respect to the forensic audit.
Member Gonzalez.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just want to go back to a question that was asked by Member Roberts. I think it was a response given by the chairman of MTS or someone else, where the sum of $850 million was touted. That's the CEO of MTS. And then the discussion segued into grass cutting and what have you. I just want to make it clear, because this is being broadcast live and we have members of the national community viewing. The $850 million that you made reference to, Mr. CEO, can you say or confirm that this $850 million is in fact what is owed to MTS by the government or state agencies?
That is correct.
And that is correct. So the $850 million that you made a reference to, Mr. CEO, is monies due and outstanding to MTS by government agencies.
Yes, that is correct.
Can you give us a breakdown or a summary, in a summary version, of the state agencies that owe MTS that comprises that $850 million?
Here, my colleague in the back. So,
okay, Ministry of Education. How much Ministry of Education is owing MTS out of that $850 million?
I do have some estimated numbers.
Sure, that will be fine.
I'm very cautious with us not having the CFO or chief accountant who recently left us about quoting financial numbers. But what I have here is 450 million, 450.
450 what? $450 million?
Correct.
Owed by?
Ministry of Education.
Ministry of Education. And the others?
There is judiciary.
Right, how much it is?
That's 180.
$180 million?
Correct. And I'm just going with the top.
Sure.
We have sport company, 30.
$30 million by the sports company.
Board of Inland Revenue, 25. And TTPS, 25.
$25 million.
Correct.
So the question therefore is to the Permanent Secretary of the Ministry of Public Utilities. PS, I know that the MPU has done quite a great amount of work in being an intermediary, working with the stakeholders, talking to your counterparts at the various ministries, including the Ministry of Education, in an attempt to have those agencies settle their outstanding financial obligations to the MTS. Can you tell us what kind of progress the ministry has had in meeting with the stakeholders to have the $850 million owed to MTS settled?
Chair, through you, thank you, member, for the question. Thank you for the acknowledgement, member. We have been meeting particularly with Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Finance, given that the payables are largely from the Ministry of Education. One of the areas we are working on is the reconciliation of the invoices. What we've found is that sometimes what MTS say the invoices are, it's different to what Ministry of Education would confirm. So that's been an ongoing process. While we try to meet the commitments for the monthly payments, we have gotten the assurance from the Ministry of Finance that there would be an additional allocation to treat with the arrears. What we've also agreed on is that the issue at hand will not be solved immediately. It will be over a period of time. So we're looking at a gradual reduction in the arrears. Okay,
thanks. Thanks very much, PS. The PS, Ministry of Education. PS, for fiscal 2025-2026, or this current fiscal, to be more specific, has the ministry received any increased allocation by the ministry or from the Ministry of Finance with a view to settling the outstanding arrears to the MTS?
Chair, through you, thank you, member, for the question. While I'm not able to say right now whether there was an increased allocation towards the various services that we access from MTS, what I can say, and that basically supports what PS Public Utility just shared, through discussions involving Ministry of Public Utilities, Ministry of Education, and in particular the Budget Division of Ministry of Finance, we have been receiving greater support from the Budget Division in terms of the timely releases to make payments towards MTS. And in fact, the quantum that is normally released to the Ministry of Education on a monthly basis has increased from what we would have received in 2024, 2025. So we've really been able to get that support so that we could, reduce the liability that is owed to to MTS.
Now, let's be clear. We are very familiar with what is happening. We are citizens and public officers. This has been a perennial issue. Ministry of Education, or some of the state agencies that were just mentioned by the CEO, sports company, judiciary, they can only pay what was or what is given to them by the Ministry of Finance. And as Ministry of Finance grapple with their own financial constraints, you, state agencies, ministries, and what have you, will have your constraints in meeting the monthly obligations owed to the MTS. So you can't do, if anything, if you are not provided with the financial resources. Left hand, right hand. So I understand the concerns and the challenges by the PS MPU, because if you are not given the resources, as much as you might be willing to, you simply cannot meet the obligations. But I noted in MTS's submission, and I'm looking specifically at page 19 of 25. External factors include, you had the minimum wage issue in 2024, where there was an increase in the minimum wage, but the Ministry of Education continued to pay the same amount of money. Not any increased allocation so that MTS can meet its obligation to pay minimum wages to its staff. So the Ministry of Education continued to pay or make payments as per usual, resulting in MTS having challenges to meet its minimum wage payment. Added to that, this was further exacerbated by your submission at page 20, NIS. With effect from 5th of January 2026, NIS increased earnings, classes, and contributions based on a contribution rate of 16.2%. This caused MTS employer contributions to increase by approximately $9.4 million for 2026, and it will increase again in 2027. And you would see the other things that have been mentioned in your submissions. So the question again comes back to your allocations and the releases that you're receiving from Ministry of Finance. Having regard to the challenges that MTS would have stated in their submission, have you received increased allocations so that MTS can meet its minimum wage payments owed to its employees, and now that you have the increase in NIS taking effect from the 5th of January 2026?
Thank you, Member, and Chair, through you. So, Member, you're asking the same question a second time, I think. I am unable to say definitively that our allocation towards the various votes that service MTS's contractual areas, for example, janitorial, school repairs, has actually increased in fiscal 2026 over the sum allocated in 2025. However, the Ministry of Finance, through its Budgets Division, has been making its best efforts to provide us with timely releases. And I also said that whereas with respect to maintenance, the maintenance vote, whereas they were providing us, I think it was around 9 million per month towards MTS for maintenance, we are now receiving 14 million per month to again try to liquidate the sums owed to MTS.
Okay. Chairman of MTS, can you see whether or not the issue that you have highlighted at page 19 with respect to the increase in the minimum wage, and page 20 with respect to the increase in NIS, whether or not you are receiving sufficient subvention to meet those payments?
Well,
not subventions, but payments from MTS. I apologize.
I could take a opportunity to answer. 6 to 8 weeks being there, the focus has been collections. It's been collections every day, trying to make the payments. As Chairman said, the priority would be salaries, then statutory.
Yes.
So it is a challenge.
Yes.
Particularly when you look at the percentage of what we invoice as salaries.
Yes.
It's extremely significant that I would say it's almost like 90%. 90% or more is salaries. So if you're invoicing a certain amount and you don't receive that amount, then you have that struggle. It's a day-to-day struggle for it. I would also defer this to Mr. Gosain. He would have provided some of these answers. He also looks at collections on a day-to-day basis. It's quite a robust system we use to follow up for collections.
Okay, thank you. I think Member Roberts had a follow-up question.
Yes, on that topic, very good topic. I feel like I am in church here today because it's good to see my honorable colleague on that side confessing that the poor allocations over a perennial time, a perennial issue, a long time, has created this hole of 850 million. So confession is good for the soul. Now, I would just like to ask, how long has this shortfall been occurring that has ballooned the hole or the deficit financing of MTS up to 850 million? For example, from the Ministry of Education owing 450 million. Did that bill just occur in 8 months, or how long has that bill been accumulating?
Well, I mean, I could say it hasn't happened over 8 months. It's been ongoing. It was discussed in the last JSC meeting here.
When was this last JSC meeting? Because I wasn't here.
2022.
2022.
And there were conversations going back to 2016 having those challenges.
This is a very serious issue, and it has been ongoing. And so I thank my honorable colleague for making that clear to the national population that since 2016, the deficit has been accumulating that has brought us to this point of 850 million. I will ask the chairman, you just said that moving forward, you plan to you bring value for money, do audits, ensure that we get efficient collections and allocations. Do you believe that your prudent management, as opposed to the management that existed before, would allow you to pay that deficit of $9.4 million for NIS and any increases that have come? Do you believe that your management or the value or the excess revenue and money allocated from the ministry, that your management will allow you to facilitate going forward any increases in NIS or salaries and so on?
So the internal factors will be systematically addressed, right? Again, from that governance and fiscal to stabilize priorities, right? So in order to do that, these external factors, I think, would require the partnership and support from the ministries, right? And the regulatory authorities, right? And I think we have started those conversations as a board, right? Whereby the board is really pursuing that direct engagement at the ministerial level to resolve those structural impediments that that no, I think that no internal management improvements can overcome. So we have started those conversations again. I think with the, with that collaboration with the ministries, we'll be able to.
Just to simplify it, what I'm basically asking, for example, if you can efficiently cut grass in secondary schools and maintain and save money on concrete and building and get more value for money based on what you have unearthed and what systems you have put in place, do you envisage that the money that you're being allocated would be sufficient for you to enhance the services provided by MTS going forward?
So we will have to, ensure that we properly assess the current, the current wages, the current contract arrangements, in order, remember, these contracts, etc., the updates for these contracts were done many years ago, right? And it is in need of updating presently. So only when we assess that situation, we will be able to know if we can, if and how to move forward.
Thank you.
For that.
No. Here.
Before you go to the next point.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. So before going into my questions, we got a question from a member of the public, so I'm just going to put it. Are there any outstanding salary payments owed to MTS security officers and maintenance personnel?
Let me qualify as well by saying the answer I believe is no, right? I mean, we are looking at it. The exit of the CFO, the chief accountant, but we did do checks in relation to current employees and monthly payments and deductions. The answer is no, but I would also class the retirees in that, and we have outstanding payments, I think, going back 3 to 4 years for them.
Member, you have a follow-up?
Much, Chair. Just to be specific, is MTS up to date with all of its outstanding payments or payments to NIS contribution on behalf of employees?
That is being reviewed. In the last couple weeks, we are looking at getting statements from NIB, BIR, in terms of anything that might be pending, any penalties and interest. There are a couple of things under query. I don't think the principal is owing, but we may have some penalties and interest we have to maneuver around in terms of late payments.
Recently, a couple of months ago, there was some protest action by employees of MTS making allegations that the company has not been making payments to their financial institutions, credit unions, etc. And as a result of that, they were in default of their monthly loan payments, etc. What would have caused or contributed to this particular issue?
I am aware. I think it happened within the first week of me coming in. Those payments would have been settled, meaning that it did happen and there were some delays.
How many employees were impacted?
I would say because it was related to the payroll, I would say it's the 6,300 employees.
6,300 employees. What contributed to this issue?
Again, I am only going on what I'm seeing happening now.
Well, you
And
have
I
the-
would say
the-
it's the collections, the ability to collect.
So you did not receive payments from your main customers that would have allowed you to make those payments on behalf of the employees in a timely manner?
I wouldn't be able to speak for what had happened in the past, but I'm just going on the basis of what is happening now.
Well, I mean, your chairman is here on your left and the Corp Sec, so I'm sure they will be able to provide some clarification. But there has been an issue in the public domain where employees made certain complaints that they were in default of their loan payments, etc., because the company simply did not make the appropriate advances to these institutions. What would have caused, that's the problem, what would have contributed to this impacting the 6,300 employees that you referenced?
Well, to help you along, it would seem to me logically, either they didn't get the money that they were supposed to get to fund the payments, or customers to whom they were providing services had not been paying their contractual payments. Would that be a fair assessment?
I stand by your logic as well.
Well, it is. You see, Mr. Chair, I mean, I could have put that to them, but I didn't want to go down the road.
You don't want your colleague to get vexed
All
on
right.
you.
So
Minister Gatsby.
Okay, so I'm gonna take my questions now, and I'm going to go down that road in a sense. But let me ask you this first. I have a personal interest in this question. You do provide maintenance services for the judiciary, right?
Yes.
Now, when was the last time the Hall of Justice power washed? It's looking disgraceful. Are you responsible for that?
Let me defer that question to Mr. Gosine.
It is one of our iconic buildings, and it's shameful looking at it when I drive past.
The answer to that question is yes, but I can't, we power wash, but I don't know if it's the steps you're referring to, or is it the concrete structure around it? Because the entire building around it? The answer is yes, but I can't say when it happened last. I'll have to check to see when last we did it.
Can I make a personal recommendation that you treat that as a priority matter?
Most definitely, Chair.
But Chairman, I will have to defend them.
Please.
Because they are owed 18 million from the judiciary.
So
the Ministry of Finance of the previous administration was not allocating enough money to the judiciary to pay for the power washing. So I would suggest that whoever is now in charge pay the bill so that we could power wash the building properly.
No, Member Roberts, that's a good point, and I wanted to follow up on that. So here's the rub, right? From what I'm hearing, your biggest debtors are really state agencies, judiciary, Ministry of Education, what have you. We're talking millions of dollars. So you also said that you've seen this as an issue that you're going to try and resolve at the ministerial level. My question is this. You're a company incorporated under the Companies Act. You're a for-profit company. As a board, your duty is first and foremost to the company. You have an obligation to promote the success of the company. You have a duty of care for the company. So do you sue these state agencies when debts reach a certain level? And what happens if by not suing, the debt becomes time-barred and you no longer have the legal right to recover that money? Could you help me with that?
That issue is being presently revised by our attorneys, our external attorneys. We're hoping we can get a legal opinion as to what our options are with respect to initiating proceedings to recover the receivables.
You may want to ask them to advise on whether you could be held personally accountable for failing to act in prosecuting the claims.
Chair, through you, if I could just answer that question. Firstly, that was brought up by your good self at the last JSC, and the answer was given by the previous CEO, Mr. Rattan Singh, who indicated that as a state enterprise, it would be, we would not be able to sue other state enterprises or ministries such as the Ministry of Education for the outstanding debts.
The difficulty, of course, is that we have a recent decision of the High Court regarding the fiduciary duties of directors and the personal liability that can attach to board members for failing to do the needful. So again, I raise it because you are caught in a very strange limbo. On the one hand, you have your obligations under the Companies Act, and on the other hand, you have these historical arrangements that may impede you. So you really need to take very careful legal guidance. Having said that, you had a question?
Just a follow-up to that very important question that you raised, Mr. Chair, and perhaps the representative of the Ministry of Finance would be able to provide some clarification to this. The MTS, in addition to its obligations under the Companies Act, is also, as a state enterprise, guided by the State Enterprises Manual. Am I correct on that? COPSEC?
Yes.
So you are guided by that. And if you are to sue or bring any legal proceedings against any state enterprise, Ministry of Education, Judiciary, TTPS, Ministry of Sports, you need to get the approval of the Ministry of Finance in accordance with the State Enterprises Manual.
Yes, as indicated, we are exploring our options.
No, but you are guided by the State Enterprises Manual.
Yes.
And the State Enterprises Manual mandates you to seek permission from the Ministry of Finance in order to sue any other state enterprise.
Yes, member.
Yes.
And upon receipt of our opinion from our counsel, we will provide all information to the Ministry of Finance, and we will be guided accordingly.
Except, member, the manual has no force in law. It is just a guideline. And the Companies Act would suggest that they have a higher duty to the company. So this is the difficulty that all these state enterprises find themselves in.
And that's the point I wanted to raise.
Chairman, I tend to agree, and you see, we reach a conundrum because the honorable member there is stating that basically state agencies are under the thumb and the oppression of whoever sits in the Ministry of Finance chair. And for 10 years, someone was sitting there who did not have the humility to care or to understand that others were under pressure. So this is why it is very important that in this system that we understand and we work together as a team, because I feel your pain that you all have been under pressure and you all now have to solve problems that were there for a very long time, and you could have only appealed to the then Minister of Finance. Even my honorable colleague on this side does not want to have to appeal to that honorable member.
All right, so I just want to ask.
I am forced, and I would not be long, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, I understand my duty as a member of this committee. I am quite capable of playing the politics, and I need no assistance. I need no protection whatsoever from you or any member of this panel to play the politics if I want to. But I understand my duty as a member of this. Joint select committees are formed with a view for members of parliament to sit in an apolitical environment so that we can tackle the issues of the state in a very transparent, apolitical atmosphere so that we can make recommendations and that the citizens who are listening can benefit from this discussion. But if you are allowing this politics to go down, Mr. Chair, I am warning you that I will play the politics as well.
All right. So we're not looking to play politics, but your points are noted and I appreciate them. I think in terms of recommendations and analysis, I think we have zeroed in on a very important conundrum, as it was suggested. And so, politics aside, this has to be addressed at some point.
And that's the reason why I raised it, the state enterprises manual, because the public servants seated on my right and the viewing public, they must understand that state enterprises do have their constraints as well. You understand? Because I am sure, had it not been for that, a company like MTS would do what it has to do in order to recover monies owed by state enterprise. It's left hand talking to the right hand.
Appreciate it. So,
and no one, Mr. Chair, finally, is sitting at the Ministry of Finance oppressing anybody. Because there's still someone at the Ministry of Finance. They have 9 months in order to address the issues. And if it was within their capacity to do it, I'm sure it would have been done within the 9 months. But let us not sit here and pretend that we don't know the financial constraints of the country. And I assure you, sitting here years from now, we'll be discussing the same thing.
Well, I'm hoping that in this year, this committee will make very strong recommendations on these points.
Chairman, let me just add to my colleague's statement that if he was listening to the Permanent Secretary at the Ministry of Public Utilities, who you should know very well, she said that the problem as it exists cannot be addressed immediately, that it will be addressed gradually. And that, I envisage, will help us move forward. But on top of that, there is a true statement from the member that oppression has been removed. So therefore, we will move forward in unity to solve the issues that have plagued
Mr. Chair, I did not say
economy.
That. Mr. Chair, I did not say that. I will not allow Member Robert. Mr. Chair, here is not doubles and coffee. Here is a joint select committee comprising of professionals, and I expect every member to conduct themselves in a professional manner. Here is not doubles and coffee.
Agreed. Okay. So I have a couple of questions to follow up on the strategic objectives. Now, under your strategic objective 3, institutional strengthening, initiative 10, you talked about new promotional materials was marked as completed and implemented. Can you let us know what did the new promotional materials project involve?
I will pass that on to Ms. Hussain.
Through the chair, sorry, you gave the question. The new promotional materials are really for the MTS's enhanced services and core services. So it's a corporate communications tool.
What are the enhanced services, please?
So we have a special elite security service. So MTS has its regular green service that everyone knows in the schools, etc., in government ministries. We have an elite service. Ministry of Finance is an example of that, the judiciary. And now we have a special elite service, which is a close protection service that we're offering. So the promotional materials that we spoke about here were specific to some of the new services that we were offering.
Now, your written submission states that progress continues to be managed in the context of ongoing financial challenges, as well as operational constraints associated with securing required firearm user approvals certification through the TTPS, which has impacted the company's ability to fully offer the complete SES service package at scale. Can you clarify the nature of the challenges associated with securing firearm user approvals for the MTS?
Mr. Chairman, what that refers, what is all that about is very simple. We require variations to our firearms. For example, we need more firearms, or we need to upgrade our.
We have an emergency situation, so members are required to vacate. Meeting is suspended. Okay, so let me just say that we are resuming this meeting. It's back in progress. I want to thank the police and the Parliament staff for handling the situation very properly, promptly, and in a well-organized fashion. So thank you for that. I don't know what the story is. That will come out at some point, but everyone is safe and accounted for. That's the important thing. Now, we've also decided that it wouldn't be fair to MTS for this meeting to have been curtailed abruptly. We will continue to around 12:30, 12:45 today, but we will probably ask you to come back for continuation because I know that there are many questions still to be asked. So on that point, we were talking about firearms users, and someone was in the course of answering. So could you come back to the point? The question was really the challenges associated with securing firearm user approvals for the MTS. Thank you.
Yes, Chairman, to continue the answer, it's twofold. One, we require a variation from the Firearms Department of TTPS to get more firearms because we are in need of firearms for our contracts. We have a number of armed contracts. Ms. Hussein would have explained that we are promoting the Special Elite Security Service. Those officers who work in that area are all armed. So we require firearms. The other part of it is require additional firearm employee user certificates, which will go hand in hand with the new firearms. So it's twofold. So we have some challenges there.
Mr. Gosain, please let us know if at any period did that process of receipt or attaining FULs or FUECs, did it get more difficult over the last 4 years as opposed to previously? If so, what caused that?
Well, the delay has certainly been over 2 years. But to be honest, I cannot say what is the main cause, but it has to be done in conjunction with the TTPS Firearms Department. MTS works in conjunction with them, and our security division, the representative of our security division, directly liaises with the police firearms department.
Well, I can tell you what it was. It was that the previous government was waging war on FUL holders and licensed firearm holders because there was a battle with a commissioner of police. So that is what occurred. So hopefully this will not continue because safety and security is a priority of this Prime Minister.
Yes. Thank you. I wanted to look just briefly on your training programs. The committee commends the consistent execution of training programs and a marked increase in several TTPS-related programs conducted in 2025. In response to question 12 at page 10, can you please outline the reasons for the increased number of TTPS-related training programs administered in 2025?
Thank you, Chair, for your question. It was just based on that same relationship that Mr. Gosain spoke about with our head of security and the TTPS. So the TTPS is offering through their training academy, free programs to all security companies can access it. So we have accessed it in order to increase the development of our staff and upskill them.
And over the past 3 years, how have these training programs benefited MTS employees?
So it is an upskill of the and of the supervisory arm of the security division as well. So it is upskilling them in terms of our special elite security. It does touch on some of the aspects of our training program as well. So what we do is we send our trainers so that they can have some sort of training transfer of some of these skills they learn through the TTPS programs.
And one more question. What new training programs, if any, are proposed for implementation in 2026? And if you could provide names and brief description of these programs to the committee in writing, that would be helpful, but you can also give an oral answer now.
We could provide the details of the programs in terms of the modules, but we are going into advanced maintenance techniques, airport maintenance, as well as hospital maintenance. Now, MTS has done and is doing both airport and hospital maintenance, but we're taking it to another level where we're calling it elite maintenance. So we'll be able to provide the breakdown of our training programs. And then in addition to that, we spoke about the special elite security training. So right now we have a core group of about 18 people, and we want to continue that training to upskill.
Thank you. Member Roberts.
Thank you, Chair. As we reach in the last 18 minutes or so, some quick fire questions. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, you spoke about the safety and security of our nation's schools. Since the advent of this government's policy on placing police in the schools, what has been your feedback?
Chair, through you, thank you, Member, for the question. So it's in the public domain that as of September 2025, the commencement of the current school year, we had that collaborative effort with the TTPS, where we saw police officers being assigned to schools. This is a collaborative effort, and there was engagement between the Ministry of Education, a number of its core divisions, school supervision, the Health and Safety Division, and others along with the TTPS, their community policing, and so on. The officers who have been assigned to the schools were all particularly trained for this particular initiative. So, you know, the sensitivity dealing with students and the different situations that would arise. Of course, we also have in the schools safety officers. So there's a lot of collaboration. I think it's no secret that there were a number of issues taking place within the schools as it relates to discipline and other matters, both inside and outside the schools. So we really sought to address that situation by bringing the police officers into the schools. As recently as last week, Thursday, I think, we had a meeting, Ministry of Education officials along with the TTPS, and we went over some of the key statistics because we've sought to have, you know, reports coming from the schools, the principals, to the Ministry of Education, tracking particular behaviors. So I think in general, member and committee members, we've seen some improvement. We've seen some improvement in some areas, which can be attributed to the presence of the TTPS. Of course, the effort continues across this academic year, so we continue to monitor. There are lessons being learned all along in terms of one of the definite things we saw is that where there's greater interaction and sharing between the TTPS officers on site and the school administration, it helps. We've talked about issues relating to even strengthening the Ministry of Education's safety officers who are on site, because this preceded the presence of the TTPS. Issues related to even providing our officers with uniforms, because admittedly there is something about a uniformed presence that would, you know, encourage the students to behave better, increasing the areas where the TTPS and our safety officers and the MTS officers patrol so that there are more visible identification of the key times within the school day where students have a tendency to act in a manner that we would not like. So thus far I would want to say that the initiative has been well received, certainly by the ministry, and we continue to work with the TTPS.
Thank you. MTS, a citizen sent me something by WhatsApp. What is your overtime bill? Have you seen any abuses of the overtime? And if you have, what are you doing to remedy that situation? And secondly, MTS drivers, do they keep their cars to go home and to do what they want? If that is so, how does that impact your cost level, whether it is maintenance of vehicles, insurance, gas, to put gas in the cars and so on? What is the way that we could be more efficient with state resources?
So I would defer that question to Ms. Hussein. She may have some answers for you.
So security is about $30 million a year in overtime. Of course, some of that is planned overtime because we have to pay overtime rates. They're working 12-hour shifts, so we have to pay 14 hours to them. We do have some instances where we do have unplanned overtime, and we are addressing that through recruitment. Maintenance is about $1 million a year, and that just has to be, that's unplanned overtime mostly, but that just has to be managed carefully.
Because do you have a problem with drivers keeping the cars to go home and to do other things, personal business and so on?
Now, there's a fleet policy that the cars must be returned after use. However, there are instances where, for example, engineering may have to go on site before they come to the office. So it is a cost savings to us for them maybe to keep the car overnight. There may be an instance where a pickup of a maintenance, garbage, etc., we may have to utilize. So it's carefully managed.
Thank you. And to the finance person at MTS, what is the methodology or process utilized to pay contracted companies for goods and or services received? What's the process?
Chair, member. So I only picked up this position on Friday. So if I may provide information further to your question.
Okay, yes, you wouldn't be able, I'll go to the CEO, right? What is the general policy? So I get a contract, I need my payment. Take the citizens through the policy to get paid.
The policy to get paid?
Or the system, the financial rules, the process.
So what we do in terms of payments is that we prioritize salaries. Next statute.
No. Sorry, specific question. Contracts. You give a contract to someone, whatever maintenance, if it is to cut the secondary school grounds.
Yeah, well,
right?
Yes,
right.
Yes.
So I cut the grass
Right.
for January. I want my payment. What do I do?
So I'm answering the question to the best of my ability. So the priority for collections is limited, right? So we do recognize that have amounts outstanding, and we can go back and check those amounts. But we do prioritize in terms of paying salaries, then statutory payments, and then any other payments.
No, you misunderstand any question. It's a simpler question. You're thinking too technical.
Okay.
I have won a contract, MTS. I am a company, Doubles and Coffee Incorporated. I have a job to do for MTS. I do my job. I want my payment. I send in my invoice to the CEO. What's the process for getting paid? Okay, let me be more specific. Is there a policy by the MTS to pay a credit union or a bank who does not have a contract with MTS? Is that possible?
I will have to look into that for you.
No, you can't have to look into it. It's a very serious thing.
Because when you ask the question, I'm thinking of it in two perspectives, right?
Yeah.
There are contractors we have or we engage for works with schools.
Right.
Right? And we pay them based on the releases from
You
Ministry
pay the
of
company.
Education. Correct.
If the company says, pay Venture Credit Union, will you do that even though you have no contract with Venture Credit Union for any form of fashion?
No,
or would you make a check payable to the company that did the work?
We would make the check to the company.
So
payable
if I
and-
put it to you that in the 2016 to 2020 period and going forward, that checks for services done and attained by MTS, monies were paid to Venture Credit Union, would that be strange?
I would have to look into that.
Well, you see, I put it to you that there's an issue that the population is aware of, that there were contracts of a former PNM government senator, that his family companies did work, and MTS, rather than paying the company directly, as is the norm, paid to Venture Credit Union.
Okay, so
Chairman, there's a very serious point. I need an answer from the CEO, please. Is that possible? And any permanent secretary could answer. Does that follow financial rules? And if it doesn't, please explain what are the elements and mischiefs that occurred at that point.
So, member, I would probably defer that to the chairman.
Yes,
I have
Chairman.
been there for 6 to 8 weeks focused
Or you
on
now read, right,
collections.
Chairman? Yes.
we are focusing on the last 3 years. So
Yes, this came out to the light on July 23rd, 2023, which is within 3 years. So
Okay,
please.
but I think that you all would want to give a very carefully calibrated answer to
Well,
this.
Chairman.
And
Chairman,
you want to give a general answer? I was
Yeah.
going to say we could do something in writing later.
Right. So
And in
will
writing, yes.
I'll do something in writing later on. But as I mentioned earlier, we did see some of those. We did see as a board some irregularities, and from that, this is why we recommended that for independent forensic audit, in order to bring to light the factual information.
Okay, and we will await that forensic audit, so I wouldn't
Yes.
ask you that. So a permanent secretary in the Ministry of Education or a permanent secretary in public utilities, just on pure principle of the finance rules, propriety, accounting procedure, procurement, payment, have you ever heard of a situation that a contract is awarded to a company and yet payment is made to another entity that has no contractual arrangement with the ministry or state agency? Have you ever heard of that?
All right, I believe that question was already asked.
No.
We will.
It's a Chairman, let me just get the answer from some qualified people, please. For my own edification. Is that possible?
Chair, through you, member, that has not been my experience.
Thank you, sir. It's a very critical issue. And another permanent secretary, have you ever had that experience that a payment was made to a financial institution separate and apart from the company that was contracted?
Chair, through you, it has not been my experience.
Thank you. So therefore, I put it to you, Chair, that if that occurred, that would be totally improper, wrong, and possibly corrupt. So we await the forensic audit of that, especially with certain companies linked to a former minister of government.
I would rather, let's wait this forensic report before we start making any broad allegations. I just have before we wrap up, I just wanted to ask the Ministry of Public Utilities a couple of questions regarding when you're reviewing the scope of MTS's services and client base. Has the ministry commissioned or reviewed any independent feasibility study to assess whether MTS possesses the technical capacity to expand into areas such as heritage building maintenance or national asset maintenance?
Chair, thank you for the question. Yes, we have had preliminary discussions around expanding the work undertaken by the MTS, we are, from the ministry's perspective, allowing the MTS to develop their strategic direction. We are actually in the process of having the MTS come before the ministry to present their plans, and going forward, we would be assessing them based on those plans.
Thank you. Given the amount of money owed to MTS by various state agencies, how does the ministry justify an expansion of services prior to the resolution of the existing debt?
Chair, thank you again. What we were looking at was services outside of government departments and agencies, so that MTS would be able to receive payments that could continue to pay their salaries, statutory deductions, and so on, while we try in the long term to resolve these issues. Of course, we are looking at, apart from the payment of the invoices, the whole system of processing, which includes the timeliness of submission of invoices, because one of the recurrent issues have been from my colleagues, particularly at Ministry of Education, is regards to the length of time it takes for those invoices to be submitted, together with quality assurance, ensuring that the scope of work are completed, so that could improve the timeliness for certification of invoices. And we are actively working on regularizing the rate of pay, because this has been an ongoing issue. We do have a plan to have a cabinet note completed by the end of this month to, in an attempt to regularize those, particularly for education and judiciary.
Thank you. And what is the estimated capital expenditure required to facilitate such an expansion?
Chair, those figures would come from MTS following their review of the areas that they could expand into. We were initially discussing expansion to even the energy sector and so on. So I do know that in some conversations with the chairman, they are exploring those, the feasibility of doing so.
How will the ministry ensure that service expansion generates sufficient cash flow to address the systemic delay in retirement benefit payments highlighted in the 2025 report of the Ombudsman?
Chair, the ministry has adopted a hands-on approach to this issue, and we are actually working closely on the invoices which are generated together with the processing times, so that that continuous cash flow is maintained. So it's a work in progress, and we do hope to have some bit of it finalized in the next month or so.
Thank you. Before I invite closing comments, does the newly appointed board have a specific mandate to oversee the proposed expansion of services offered by MTS, and have any specific KPIs been identified to measure the success of these new activities? This is a question to the Ministry of Public Utilities.
My apologies, Chair. Can you repeat?
This is with respect to page 2 of your submissions. Objective 4, question 1.
Sorry, Chair, can you repeat your question, please?
Does the newly appointed board have a specific mandate to oversee the proposed expansion of services offered by MTS? This is a mandate from your ministry. And have any specific things been identified to measure the success of these new activities?
Sure, thank you, Chair. The MTS will be presenting to the ministry their plans for the upcoming year. Included in that submission is the proposed KPIs, which would be reviewed by the ministry, and a formal response in terms of whether the plans have been approved or not will be communicated. So going forward, the ministry will we would all be on the same page as to what these KPIs are and the progress of the initiatives.
And when will that meeting take place?
The meeting is scheduled for the 4th and 5th of February.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so may I invite brief closing comments from the chief officials, starting with the chairman.
Mr. Chairman, members, so first of all, I want to thank you all for having us here today. I think the discussions here were very fruitful, Member Roberts. All right. So briefly, in my closing comments is that we are here as a new board in MTS, all right, in order to really find a solution to this problem that we have encountered as coming into office. We are here in order to practice good governance and ensure that we achieve the mandate that the Prime Minister has set out for us to do, and our Minister, in order to ensure that we perform as the board. And as I did mention earlier, the board will be judged on the performance itself. Thank you.
Thank you. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Public Utilities.
Apologies. Chair, members, I wish to thank you for the conversation today. We do look forward for recommendations, as well as we've noted some of the conversations today that we will take back, and we do commit from the ministry level to support MTS and to work with the colleagues throughout the ministries to bring an early resolution to these issues, or a timely resolution to these issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education.
Thank you, Chair. The Ministry of Education certainly thanks you and the committee for availing us of the opportunity to appear this morning and to respond to the questions posed. I do want to echo the sentiments of my fellow peers from Ministry of Public Utilities that we are committed to working towards, as timely as possible, payment of outstanding amounts to MTS. I often tell people that the state is not a bad debtor. It may be slow at times, but it's not a bad debtor. And so the Ministry of Education will continue to work with MTS, with Public Utilities, and the Ministry of Finance to address the liabilities as soon as possible. We look forward to any further opportunities to appear before the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, and I would like to thank you all very much for your contributions today. Okay, Member Roberts would like to say something.
Yes, I want to thank, because I grilled some of you very harshly. I want to thank you all for coming and for serving your country. Thank you very much. And to MTS, you all have a daunting task ahead of you. And while I agree with the Honorable Permanent Secretary that the government is not a bad debtor, they might be slow. It has been slower in the last 10 years than ever before in our history. So we need to pick up the pace. We have a lot of work to do, and we have to serve the people with value for money. And I think that you all are on the right track with your strategic plan, and I wish you all the best going forward.
Thank you, Member Roberts. So all that we have talked about today will be very helpful in drawing up a report and recommendations for action to the relevant authorities. We will be calling you back to continue this conversation, but I think insofar as it goes today, I think this concludes our business today, and this meeting is now suspended. So in closing, may I just thank the company, the media, the viewing and listening audience. Thank you.